Old, rough and ready, President Zachary Taylor. Hey everybody, this is Colonel Carson with Family Tree Nuts, and I'm at Zachary Taylor National Cemetery in Louisville, Kentucky. And I'm at the monument and gravesite of President General Zachary Taylor. By the way, if you like these types of videos, make sure you subscribe to our free YouTube channel and click that little bell so you get notifications as to when we post new videos. So who is President Zachary Taylor? He was a Major General, the 12th President, a career soldier. He was commissioned in 1808 as a captain in the War of 1812. He was a colonel in the Black Hawk War of 1832 and also in the Second Seminole War. He was the general hero of the Mexican-American War. And he was the first president elected without prior political office in 1848. His main goal as president was to preserve the Union, and he died unexpectedly. He was born November 24th, 1784 in Orange County, Virginia. He was the last president born before the United States had a constitution. His family was wealthy plantation owners. They had multi-generations of wealth. He was a second cousin to President James Madison. He was a third cousin once removed to Robert E. Lee. His father, Richard Taylor, was a lieutenant colonel in the Revolutionary War. He's also buried behind the monument. Richard came with Hancock and explored the Ohio and the Mississippi rivers in 1769 to 1771. He went from Pittsburgh to New Orleans and then back to Virginia via the sea. Richard was given 8,000 acres near Louisville for his service, but he stayed in Virginia for a while before he came to Kentucky. His brother Hancock moved to Kentucky in 1773. That's right, 1773. That's before the settlement of Fort Harrod or Boonesboro in 1775. Hancock surveyed around modern-day Frankfort. In 1774, Hancock was surveying land around the mouth of the Kentucky River for Governor Dunmore for lands to be given to troops from the French and Indian War. He was shot by Native Americans and his companions tried to dig out his bullet wound. Daniel Boone was sent to warn everybody to get out of Kentucky because the Native Americans were getting ready to attack. On the way back to Virginia, Hancock died at the mouth of modern-day Taylor's Fork and Silver Creek in Madison County, less than a mile from my house. In 1803, Richard went to the grave with Robert Rhodes of Boonesboro and marked it. As a young boy, the family moved to his father's Kentucky lands sometime around 1790. His father named their home Springfield, and Zachary's father's holdings grew with the growth of Louisville. And soon he had 10,000 acres and a few dozen slaves. Zachary is said to have bad handwriting all of his life. They say that that's a mark of intelligence. Your brain works faster than your handwriting. I'm definitely in that camp. In 1810, Zachary married Margaret Macaw Smith, and they had 6 children. One of their children was Sarah Knox Taylor. Knoxie married Jefferson Davis in 1835. Yes, that Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy later on. Jefferson Davis was a subordinate under Taylor, and Taylor objected because he didn't want Army life for his daughter. Davis loved her so much that he resigned from the Army, but Knoxie died of malaria 3 months later. Another one of his children was Richard Dick Taylor, who ended up serving as a Confederate general. Zachary Taylor received his first commission in the Army in 1808. He was sent to New Orleans with all the rattling of sabers leading up to the War of 1812. Now, about this same time, the city of Louisville was growing, and Zachary Taylor's holdings and his wealth was growing along with it. Zachary Taylor purchased bank stock and bought a couple of more plantations and had more than 200 slaves. In 1811, he was sent to take command of Fort Knox, which was on the site of Fort Sackville in Vincennes, Indiana. He was called to testify in a court-martial and was not present for the Battle of Tippecanoe against the Shawnee. Taylor served in the Northwest Territory region in the War of 1812. He was made a brevet major, and he had success as a leader. After the war, he was brought back to the rank of captain, and he resigned. He came back to the Army in a year, and he was promoted back to major. In 1817 and 1818, he commanded Fort Howard in Green Bay, Michigan Territory. That's Green Bay, Wisconsin today. He returned to Louisville in 1819 and was promoted to lieutenant colonel. In 1821, he was sent to establish post in Louisiana, and he stayed until 1824. From 1824 to 1826, he was on recruiting duty. In 1826, he got another plantation in Louisiana, and he moved his family to Baton Rouge. Then in 1828 and 1829, he was in command of Fort Snelling and Fort Crawford in the Michigan Territory. Then in 1832, he was promoted to colonel and had action in the Black Hawk War. In 1837, Taylor was sent to Florida to fight in the Second Seminole War. On Christmas of 1837, he took part in the Battle of Okeechobee, and then he was promoted to brigadier general. In May 1838, he took command of all American forces in Florida for the next 2 years. Here he earned the nickname Old Rough and Ready. In 1840, he took leave and toured the country with his family. I'd say he's earned it. He's been stationed all over the West. Then in 1841, he was made commander of the 2nd Department, Western Division, west of the Mississippi, south of the 37th parallel, bordering Missouri and Arkansas, and Kansas and Oklahoma. He set up his station in Arkansas, and not much went on for the next few years. So he often went back and tended to his land and his properties. In 1844, Taylor was sent to Louisiana to defend Texas during an attempted annexation. Later, President Polk sent him to lead a force into Mexico, anticipating Mexican invasion. In March of 1846, Taylor was sent to the Rio Grande. Then in May, Zachary Taylor led American forces against the Mexican army at the Battle of Resca de la Palma and the Battle of Palo Alto. After the battles, he was promoted to brevet major general. And then the next month, he was given a promotion to full major general. People began to compare him with George Washington and Andrew Jackson. In September 1846, Taylor defeated the Mexicans at the Battle of Monterey in only 3 days. It was supposed to be impregnable. President Polk sent General Winfield Scott to attack the port city of Veracruz, and he ordered many of Taylor's most experienced men to join with Scott's force. Santa Anna heard that Taylor's forces were much smaller, and he decided to move against Taylor. Taylor's forces were well dug in and defeated Santa Anna at the Battle of Buena Vista. Zachary Taylor remained at Monterey until November 1847, when he took a steamer home. Here he received a hero's welcome in New Orleans and Baton Rouge. Taylor was awarded many awards for his service in the war, and he's the only person to be awarded 3 Congressional Gold Medals. Ulysses S. Grant served under Taylor and spoke highly of Taylor's leadership. Now it was time for the presidential election of 1848. Taylor was wanted by both parties. He kept his politics secret. He said that he never voted, but if he did vote, he would have voted for the Whig Party and Henry Clay. Southerners assumed that he would support the expansion of slavery. Eventually, he declared himself a Whig, and he beat out Henry Clay and Winfield Scott for nomination. Taylor chose Millard Fillmore from New York as a running mate to earn more Northern voters. They defeated Lewis Cass and Martin Van Buren for the presidency. Zachary Taylor was the last person elected president not in the Republican or Democrat Party. He was the last Southerner elected until Woodrow Wilson in 1912. After his election, he stated his command at the Western Division before heading to Washington, D.C. to be president in January of 1849. He wanted to place Kentucky Governor Crittenden as Secretary of State, but he passed because he had just won the governorship of Kentucky. Crittenden was the one that spearheaded Taylor's election. It took about a month for Zachary Taylor to get to Washington. They had bad weather, all kinds of delays, sickness, and they even had an abduction. A family friend captained a steamer and picked Taylor up before the appointed steamer that they wanted to honor to transport the president. So technically, he kidnapped the president. Taylor laughed when he found out what happened. Taylor's term started on Sunday, March 4th, 1849, but he wasn't sworn in until Monday because of his feelings about the Sabbath. So another man was sworn in for just a day. There's some neat trivia for you. It is said that Zachary Taylor was the first to use the phrase First Lady when he met Dolly Madison. The major issue during his presidency was what to do with slavery in the newly acquired territories. Taylor was a slaveholder himself, but he didn't think that slavery was practical in the Southwest for growing cotton and sugar. Which brings us to the question, with mechanical advances, would slavery have died out eventually if we didn't go to war? We'll never know. In 1850, Henry Clay took an even more strong leadership role, drafting the Compromise of 1850. California received statehood. They had a slave state for a free state. Slavery stayed in Washington, D.C., but the slave trade there was banned. And another interesting thing that happened during this time is President Taylor almost led an army to defend the New Mexico territory from a Texas invasion. On July the 4th, 1850, President Taylor ate cherries and iced milk at a fundraising event for the Washington Monument. He got severely ill with an intestinal ailment. Many wonder if he was poisoned. Now, there was a lot of bad sewage in Washington, D.C. They weren't very sanitary at the time. President Zachary Taylor died on July the 9th, 1850 at age 65. Vice President Millard Fillmore was sworn in as president. President Taylor's body was transported to his family home near Louisville and was buried by his parents at their Springfield. He was the last president to own slaves, and he was the second to die in office. Several things are named for Zachary Taylor, including bases, World War II Navy ships, counties, and cities. Just to my right is the Zachary Taylor Monument. And to my left is the tomb of Zachary Taylor and his wife. Behind the tomb is his original burial tomb. And just behind that tomb is several of his family members, to include his father. So here we are at the burial site of General, President Zachary Taylor, old rough and ready. One of those presidents that many people have forgotten about. He served in the War of 1812 all the way through the Mexican-American War. He gave his life to service to his country, and we're proud to honor his legacy. And remember, family tree nuts, let our nuts find the nuts in your family tree.